Hello, hello, my amazing listeners. Welcome. Thank you for joining the conversation today. I am excited to introduce the guest that I have with me in this episode, Michele Locke, who is a family law attorney and former associate court judge right here in Austin, Texas with me. Michele has risen to prominence from a life shaped with challenges, which you will hear her share a few of those challenges today. And since then, she's been really driven to advocate for those who couldn't advocate for themselves. Michele works to demystify the court system by educating those who are fearful around and of the courtroom. She brings a sense of peace and security and a sense of humor to her clients and community. Michele Locke's mission continues to focus on ensuring that the courts remain a safe place where everyone is treated equally and have experienced a lot of unfairness and inequality in the courtroom. When Michele's assistant reached out to me to have her come on the podcast, I often get really skeptical about some of these requests. And as I was scrolling through her work, I was definitely intrigued. And anytime I consider having a guest come on, I like to do a quick phone call and just see if it's a good fit and to be honest, to see if it really is worth my time. Well, I will just tell you within 2 minutes of talking with her, I was like, oh yeah, she needs to come on. Now, in case you haven't noticed, this episode is going to be marked explicit. I gave Michele free speech rights in this conversation, mainly because I know that when we talk about really hard and unjust things, sometimes there are just no words to use that really give the feeling and describe the feeling that a lot of y'all are dealing with and experiencing than some of those 4-letter words. But it is more than what you usually hear. So I wanted to give you just a heads up in case this is one of those episodes you're playing in the car as you're running around with kids doing errands. It is an episode that, depending on where you're at in your court process and your divorce process, it may be hard. It may be triggering. If you're done with the court process and you're noticing that listening to this episode, you're showing up in some of these unhealthy patterns that Michele and I talk about today, it may be hard. I think that even if you're divorced, this is a good episode to hear because sometimes we're still picking up the rope and playing that game of tug of war with our ex. And if we're not careful, it can bite us in the behind. Michele has years and years of experience, has seen it all. But what I liked the most about her message is that she wants to empower women in the same capacity that I do. So here's our conversation and really part 1, because she has agreed to come back if we can get our busy schedules to match, because she does still act as a sitting judge. But I'm going to say is just part 1 of an upcoming part 2 at some point of our conversation. And hopefully it helps shift you to take some of your power back. I'll have you just introduce yourself a little bit, then we'll just dive right into it.
Absolutely.
Go from there.
Absolutely. Let's go.
All right, girl. Well, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Oh,
Who are you?
who am I? Other than the enigma? No. Michele Locke, of course. I've been a lawyer now for 23 years. This is my 23rd year of being a lawyer. I've done family law basically my entire career. I did criminal defense. I worked at a firm, like a law firm, a civil law firm. My first years out, worked at the city attorney's office. But my passion was always family law. I come from a divorced family. My father was married, well, legally or not. I couldn't tell you, 5 maybe. The last one was probably, anyways, 5 marriages at least. Only 3 kids from 2 of the marriages. I grew up with step siblings. My mom remarried to a wonderful man who is really the reason I am where I am today in my life is because of my stepdad. I got married at 25 when I was still in law school. He's now my ex-husband, but my husband at the time was a prosecutor and ended up being a prosecutor for almost 30 years, tried capital murder cases, and we have lived and breathed law for forever. I became a judge for the first time, I think at age 31, and I've been a judge in one form or another since I was age 31. I'll be 48 here shortly. So I've played all sides of the spectrum. When I was a full-time family law judge, I handled the protective order court, and so I handled the majority of protective orders for the county in which I resided. And then all of the divorces, family law, custody cases that came out of those protective orders. So every divorce I handled in that court as a judge dealt with some kind of element of stalking, harassment, and domestic violence, child abuse. I also, for a period of time, ran the Protective Services Court in El Paso. And so I've really, in 23 years, had a career that I don't think most people are lucky enough to have in their entirety of their career. So whether that's good or bad for my mental health, I don't know that I could tell you.
We won't go there today.
Yeah, we don't go there today. But I've seen, and I can't say I've seen it all, because when I say I've seen it all, the minute I say that, something new happens. For example, I never thought that I would use a pig whip in court. I used a pig whip in court this past week. And so that was a new one for me. There's a long story behind it, but it's now in my office on my wall hanging as a trophy of things you wouldn't think happen in court. So, and that brings me to where I am
for another day.
Story for another day, but you think I'm kidding. There's a pig whip in my office.
Oh my gosh.
I went through security. This was a county 45 minutes from where I live in Austin. And I walked into the security with the pig whip. And the officer looked at me and he said, "What's this for?" And I said, "It's an exhibit for court." He's like, "And just let me through with it."
Only in Austin.
Only in Texas. Like, I don't know there's any other place other than maybe Montana or maybe New Mexico that you're going to walk into court with a pig whip.
Gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
So that's me.
Yeah, you've seen a lot. And
it's
why it was so intriguing to me and why I was like, I gotta have you on because of what you experienced that you just stated right there. And so we're very lucky. I know my listeners are going to be repeating this episode over and over, right, ladies?
I hope so. And they get some like useful nuggets and ignore all my bad jokes. Just ignore them.
Oh gosh, no. We're good. And all words fly around here. I just mark explicit, so don't hold back. Sometimes other good words to use with the 4 letters when we're talking about what we're talking about today. And it's intense topics and conversation. And my ladies who have experienced betrayal, abuse, and divorce because of it, I call it a life-saving divorce. And the experiences that they've had and those that are still in the middle of the hell going through it. I'm again excited that we had the conversation today and hopefully they can feel validated. I always try to validate the experiences that are tough, confusing, hard, and bring a lot of cognitive dissonance around, but hope and empowerment as well.
There is light at the end of the tunnel. Boy, is it hell going through it. It really is. Yeah. They always say the hardest things in life are death, divorce, and taxes.
Yep.
And that couldn't be more accurate. I mean, I went through my own divorce recently and I do this for a living and it still was awful. That being said, I can't imagine just how difficult and hard it is for people that navigate it without knowing what the system is, without knowing what to expect, because it is a whole new world out there in family law. Like I always tell my clients, I said, there's lots of 4-letter words in family law. Fair is not one of them.
Like I'm just going to leave that pause in. My assistant, leave this pause in.
Right. Because I mean, it's really true. Like, well, that's not fair. I said, I know it's not fair. Divorce is not fair. And anyone that goes into divorce thinking it's fair needs to change their mindset because they're going to be disappointed.
Yeah. And all the feelings that are coming up right now as you listen to that are valid.
No, they are. Okay, I'm going to say it. It's bullshit that it's not fair.
Right.
But it's just not. And I go back to what I tell my clients. When I say it's not fair, I mean it for a couple of reasons. And I can say this from when I used to be a judge or when I was a family law judge. The courts, and I hate to say this, don't necessarily care about you. They don't necessarily care about your spouse. What they care about is what's happening to those kids. And so what the court determines is fair and appropriate for those kids is what the court's going to rule that may not align with what you're thinking is fair or right.
Mm-hmm. And in your experience, because I'm hearing all kinds of them going, but.
Right.
When you, again, dealing with these high conflict situations where we are dealing with a massive master manipulator, narcissistic tendencies, all abusive behaviors, destructive behaviors, all the things, it isn't fair.
Oh, it's not fair. And so the trick to it is to learn how to navigate it so that you don't lose your power.
Let's talk about that right there, because this is what I'm unfortunately seeing is that the power of control and the rope that the two parents are playing tug of war with.
Mm-hmm.
And even though you as a betrayed partner and experiencing abuse in that relationship, continuing to experience abuse. In fact, most of my clients, I will say the abuse and the destructive behaviors escalate after, I'm just going to genderize here because most of my clients are women divorcing male partners. But most of the time when they are divorcing the male partner, then escalates those behaviors that
Yes.
are abusive. And so it's almost takes them back a little bit like, well, wait a second. Now they're dealing with something on a whole new level than what they had dealt with in the marriage. So they're mitigating that, but they're trying to hold on to control and control the outcome so much that it's actually biting them in the ass
Yep.
in court. Can
Yep.
you talk about what typically those behaviors are?
Oh, so some of it just depends on the personality type, but and I think the term narcissist is really very much overused right now. But I think what I refer to is that when you're dealing with an asshole, right? We'll just call him an asshole because you can't stop someone from being an asshole who wants to be an asshole. That's the bottom line. And so what you have to learn is how to navigate around the asshole. And the assholes, and understand assholes can be men and women. Let's be real clear on this. But you just have to learn to not give away your power. And so one of the most effective ways to do it is ensure that you don't communicate in person, that you use an app like AppClose or our Family Wizard, and you only communicate through writing. And I'm going to say you don't communicate through text, because the problem with text is you text at midnight, you text when you have a couple glasses of wine, you text when you're pissed off and you're like, oh, that son of a bitch, I'm going to tell him. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. And every time you engage in that behavior, you give away your power.
Every
So
time.
you never want to communicate when you are angry. I will tell you this, though. Write out whatever email it is you want to send. Just don't send it. Just don't hit send. Or send it to your best friend saying, I need you to read this before I send this. Do that. Our Family Wizard has a tone meter. And so it will tell you if the tone of your communication is inappropriate. But the best thing I tell clients to do when they're engaging with someone who is like that, who is just, excuse my language, is you use the BIF method of communication: brief, informative, firm, and friendly. You don't castigate them. You don't tell them what they're doing is wrong. Even if they're coming at you saying you're a terrible mother, you didn't provide Johnny with his football shoes or his football clothes when I went and picked him up. You need to drop it off at my place now. You know what the beauty of divorce is? You get to use the word no. Stop apologizing. Stop being accommodating because you think it's going to make it work better. It's not. It didn't work during the marriage. It's sure as heck not going to work post-divorce. Just say no. But when you're communicating with them, you just say, for example, they start sending you some nasty email saying, you need to drop these off because you're a terrible mother and didn't drop them off at my place earlier or didn't drop them off at school. And say, I have left them on the front porch. You're more than welcome to come get them. And leave it at that. Don't engage in the argument, because the minute you engage, that's what they want. That's what they're dying. That's what they're dying to have. And the minute
it is their food, it is their water, it is their breath.
it's their life. Like, they get off on it. Just
Yes.
don't engage. And if you don't engage, you gain all your power back.
Yeah.
You just can't engage. Like, they will text you all these. I mean, it's like the same as love bombing. When you first started dating someone, like, the love bombing is like, oh, it's wonderful. It's going to last forever. No, it doesn't. Say no and don't engage.
Yeah. This is a hard one that I did this early on before
I did it.
and lawyers got involved, right? It's so hard. And especially when I see this really, really, really hard when my clients are finally opening their eyes to this destructive, abusive behavior. And they haven't had a voice, and now they want a voice, and they don't want to be mowed over anymore. They don't want to be steamrolled anymore. And so there's this part of them that's like, well, if I don't call this out, they're going to get away with it. they're doing it anyways.
They're gonna do it anyways.
And you're feeding the beast. You're feeding them. You're giving them more ammo to use and weaponize against you when you are giving them privy to your emotions and your all of these tender thoughts.
What your clients need to think is everything they put into writing is Exhibit A in court. And the more you put in, I'm going to stand up for myself and I'm going to tell them exactly what I think this SOB is Exhibit A in court to show them you are mentally unstable and shouldn't have the kids.
So true, but man.
Right. And my friends, my sisters, don't have some wine and then text. If you drink alcohol past 8 o'clock, put your phone away.
Lock it up.
Hide your keyboard.
No, for real though.
No, while we can laugh about it, it's not 100% true. It's 1,000% true. Put it away.
It's so hard. Well, I mean, I honestly, I got to the point where I literally paid my lawyer more to run the communication because I just couldn't do it. And I was like, I can't.
I gotta tell you, that's the actually smartest thing to do for a couple of reasons.
It's worth the money.
It's worth the money for several reasons. One, it manages your communications early on while you are still learning how to communicate with your ex, because it is, ladies and gentlemen, an art form to learn how to co-parent with someone with a personality disorder. It is an absolute art form. And the lawyers who have been doing it for a very long time know how to draft the correspondence for two reasons. Because the key with someone like that, when you've got someone with a personality disorder on the other side, is you have to trap them with your correspondence. And what I mean by trap them is they have two ways to respond. Option A is a response that helps the kids. Option B is not a response that helps the kids, but helps you in court. And that's how a good family law attorney can help you to teach you how to communicate. And y'all, I'm from Texas, sorry. But y'all, it is the way to learn how to do it early on in your divorce, because that is a communication method and tool that you will need to use throughout your co-parenting relationship until those children are over the age of 18, because someone like that's always going to threaten you with, I'm going to take the kids away, I'm going to take the kids away, I'm going to take the kids away. And if you don't give them any ammunition because you communicate appropriately, then the threat's meaningless. But if you start going off on the diatribes and sending drunk messages at 8 o'clock at night, you're going to be put on sober link at the next court hearing.
Yeah. Yeah. What are some other things you see?
Oh, that's really the big one. Be careful of, and this one I think rings true for anyone that's done this for a very, very long time. The person they start sleeping with is not the problem. They're not the problem. I know you want to blame them because, well, if she didn't for him, he wouldn't have done it. That's not true. He did it because he wanted to. Didn't matter what it could have been. I mean, it could have been a cartoon character. It doesn't matter. If he wanted to do it, he was going to do it. And blaming her does a couple of things. Lets him off the hook for his bad behavior because it's not her fault. It takes two to lose clothes and someone to accidentally fall in, right? And secondly, it's a bigger sign that something was wrong with your relationship. Again, there's always caveats and exceptions. Like if you have a serial cheater or the guy sleeps with a new woman every other week, those are different scenarios. But don't blame her, because then you become the bitter ex, and that doesn't play well in court. It's because you're bitter that he's moved on, not that he's a bad parent, right? And so what you want to do is focus on him and his parenting, not he's a son of a bitch because he's sleeping with someone else.
Yeah.
That has to be your focus. Now, if that person's bad for your kids, if she's got some kind of criminal history, or let's say your husband switches teams and that person's got a criminal history, those are different analyses. But as a general rule, it's not the side piece's fault.
Yeah.
I mean, she may have her whole host of issues, but he's the problem.
Right. And this is so hard. Like everything you're saying is right. And what I want to validate for those of you who are listening is why this is so hard is because when you've been betrayed in the relationship, the new relationship, even if you're separated, getting a divorce, it's going to trigger the trauma and the pain that happened. And so it makes sense why you're going to want to focus on it because it's bringing it up. But to what you're saying, Michele, when you're trying to win in court and do your best in court, this isn't the focus.
It's
And
not. It
you
cannot
can't
be.
take your eye off the ball in this way. And
No.
it's another one of those things that can pull you in and you will lose.
You become the crazy, bitter ex.
Yeah.
And that is not what you want to portray in court ever. And,
Right.
and understand, you are betrayed because
Yeah.
you're looking at this going, well, why is he, no, it's because all the changes that you bitched about that he wouldn't make for you, you see him doing,
It looks like he's changing. Yeah.
and he's not. And
Mm.
just keep the following phrase in mind, ladies. There's no refunds, returns, or exchanges. She can have them.
It is so true. I love it.
It's so true. I mean, it's a go-to line for me. No refunds,
and the
returns,
thing
or
is,
exchanges.
look, if they didn't do the work to heal and to repair and to recover and all the things in the marriage and after, they're a new woman, a new side, as you call it, isn't going to do that for them. So it
It's
does
just
it
filling
doesn't.
a void temporarily until
It
he
does.
moves on to idiot C.
It's just right. Okay, the other thing I see is the micromanaging.
Oh, ladies.
Okay.
Hey, let me tell you about divorce. Oh, man, you're hitting all my hot topics today.
I see it all. I see it all.
When you're getting divorced, and I have actually sent women away from my office saying, you are not ready. Because guess what, ladies, lose control. And when you choose to get divorced, there are consequences to that. And what you think is, well, the kids have this activity, this activity, this activity, this activity. You go into court with overscheduled children. As a general rule, the judges aren't going to like it because you are trying to micromanage the other parent's time. And the law is pretty clear that every parent has a constitutional right to parent their children the way they seem fit. I'm sorry your asshole ex doesn't want to parent the same way you do. There isn't shit you can do about it unless it's abuse. And be careful on what you say is abuse.
Yes.
Putting them to bed at a different bedtime than what you do is not abusive. The judge is
letting them play video games for 2 hours longer is not abusive, or not feeding them a salad for every meal is not abusive, or not letting them have the device you send with them is
not letting them talk to you. Not abusive. And that's a whole other segment on communications.
That's a hard one.
Well, we'll go to that one in a minute, because that is a hard one. But
yeah.
Anyways, that's a whole separate issue. But you have to remember that the judges you're going in front of that determine your case are judges that have seen child abuse. And I'm talking, when I was a judge that did CPS work, I saw a 3-week-old put in a microwave. I saw a 1-year-old baby that weighed 16 pounds due to malnutrition and being starved. I saw kids that were used as ashtrays by their parents to put out the cigarettes, broken orbital sockets, broken femurs, fractured skulls. I can't tell you what I saw, and it's one of the reasons why I stopped doing it, because I would put myself in front of a car for my children. I would. Did it once anyways, long story. That being said, the judges you go in front of see abuse.
Yeah.
And usually what most parents are complaining about are first world problems. They're not real abuse.
Yeah.
Now, there are times where it becomes abusive, true abuse. And then if that's the case, then you report it and report it through the appropriate channels. But you don't go into court and say, well, judge, he's putting him to bed at 9:30 and I put him to bed at 8. And so that's abusive.
Well, and let's just even go a little deeper with the emotional abuse or manipulation. So again, I see my women getting more educated and aware around these abusive, destructive behaviors that they experience. And then they're seeing their children experience it from their dad. And that just lights them up, right? And now they want to go and protect their children because they're like, you're being manipulated and you're being gaslit and you're being whatever. And then that is this drive to prove in court that this type of behavior is happening. Can you talk about that?
I can, and they're not going to like my answer. The school of hard knocks for children help create better children. And it is better in some regards for children to learn some of the life's balancing acts that you have to do as an adult to navigate the real world. They cannot live in a bubble forever. They have to learn to navigate different households, different friendships, different dynamics. And it's part of the growing lesson. And I can tell you this. I am forever grateful that my parents got divorced. I am forever grateful that my father's household was an abusive, alcoholic, terrible household. And while it was difficult to go, I remember watching my mom cry when we would have to go over and we'd have to come back. And his house smelled so bad for various reasons that we would have to strip, my brother and I would have to strip down to our basically skivvies when we got home to go shower as soon as we walked in the door because we smelled so bad. I would not be where I am today without those struggles. Struggles, y'all, are not a bad thing. And it teaches, and children are resilient. And the older they get, the more they will realize what's going on. You're not going to explain to a 9-year-old or a 12-year-old, dad's gaslighting you. What you just tell the child when the child comes home and says, Daddy said this about you. Okay, sweetheart, your dad's entitled to his opinion. And then you just move on. But you're never going to win by trying to show your kid, even under the age of 16, that the other parent's a terrible POS. They have to come to that conclusion on their own. And if they do, when they do, then you weren't the bad guy for doing it. But if you start doing it, then you're going to get charged. Then you're going to get accused of parental alienation. And there's a whole other ball game because there are true cases of parental alienation. I've gone to trial on them. But people overuse that term just like they do narcissism.
Well, it gets used against them if I've seen.
Correct. Oh, it gets flipped. It absolutely gets flipped.
So what you're saying, I know is hard for a lot of listeners to hear, but it is so true. And I've experienced this and literally as of very, very recently, my 21-year-old coming to terms and massive radical acceptance around his father. And here's the thing. If you the longer you prevent your children and thinking you're protecting from the realities of this unwell, unhealthy, abusive, whatever parent, it's going to take them longer to figure it out. But they will figure it out one way or another, with or without you, because it is their parent and that attachment is real. And
you cannot break biologic attachment. You cannot replace that attachment, especially if they grow up with that parent. You just can't.
You all have heard me talk about attachment theory. This is real. They will always, no matter how unhealthy a parent is, they will always have a need for that parent. And the best thing you can do is stay in your lane and stay empowered and stay in control with what you can control, stay healthy, stay clear, and show them a different lifestyle, show them a different path, what healthy looks like. The more you focus on that, I feel like the quicker my kids have been able to identify the different lifestyles and healthy.
They do, but you've got to let them figure it out on their own.
Gotta let them figure it out on their own, in their own time, because every single one of my kids have navigated this in their own way and in their own time.
It's the whole, you can't lead a horse to water, right? It's like you can lead a horse to water, but they're not you can't force them to drink. It's the same theory.
Yeah. All 3 of my other children figured out and cut out father. And there's one left that was holding on. He had to do it in his own time.
Yep. They do.
Not even his own siblings could convince him. So I wasn't going to, nor was I trying. But anyways, it's hard to accept, but I've just seen over and over so much truth in what you're saying.
Doing this for 23 years now, you learn a few things, unfortunately, whether it's good or bad or ugly.
Yeah.
And I know that when you're going through it, it's really difficult to listen to, because this is a harsh reality, right? This is not what you want to hear. You want to hear that you're going to be able to control all the things that relate to your kids, that you're going to make all the decisions, that you're not have to co-parent. But you are entering a brave new world when you get divorced, and there is an art form to navigating it correctly.
Yeah.
And if you don't, you end up losing in court.
Yep. Okay. So communication, keep it. Mine, you have your acronym. Mine was KISS. Keep it simple because they're stupid.
Well, that's my trial. Every case I try, it's the KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid. Every single time.
I just said because they're stupid. No, but just keep it simple. Take
It's
a
brief,
out of it.
informative, friend and firmly. It's actually a method of communication. People can Google BIFF. It's a great way to do it.
And we have Chat GPT.
Use it, y'all. It works great.
Use it. But even chat can get a little wordy. So keep it even more simple.
Can I give them a quick hint on Chat GPT?
Yeah.
Just when you want to have the wine and not text them, upload a picture of them into Chat GPT and ask them to modify it however you want to modify it and turn it into a cartoon. You will laugh for hours and you will feel so much better about yourself. But now only share it with your friends. Don't send it to your ex and say, hey, just you don't think you some good laughs on a Friday night. You think I'm kidding.
Gotta have some fun. You got some fun along the way. Oh, little laughs will save you. Okay, communication, take emotions out of it. I really do like your don't text if at all possible. It's interesting because for me, the reason why I turned everything over to my lawyer is because I felt so afraid and I didn't know what I could communicate and what I couldn't because there
Yep.
was all this pressure that I had to tell him all the things.
And you don't.
And you don't. It was really helpful to see my lawyer not respond to me ever. And I'm like, because he said, if you need to respond, I'll let you know. And I'm like, what, 2 days, 3 days? It
I
was
tell my clients, if you need to worry,
mind
I'll let you know.
yeah, it was
And if you're not hearing from me, you
mind-blowing.
don't need to worry.
I had no idea how little I really needed to worry
Oh,
about.
the communication, you do not need to send the link. If you're email to your ex, unless you all are fabulous co-parents, I mean, there are exceptions, but if you're not a fabulous co-parent with your ex for whatever reason, if you are sending a message with more than 5 sentences, you're probably sending too much.
Yeah. Yeah. Just stop.
Just stop. And by the way, it's not your job to make sure they know when the parent-teacher conference is. It is not your job to tell them when the basketball game is or where it's at, because guess what? You send them the schedule and say, here you go. It's their job to read it, not yours to tell them like you did when you were married.
No, and guess what? The schools have a website that they can go on like a grown-ass person and figure out that information themselves. And so those were the kind of things that I was being pressured to respond to and feeling like if I don't, I'm gonna lose my kids.
Yeah. You
So
don't. It's
do
like,
you have any other of those like examples of things that they don't have to respond to because they're afraid that if they don't, they'll lose in court, lose in court?
oh, so here's a good one. The doctor's visits, because this is always a fight. Always, always, always. Because the one parent that was never involved, and again, this goes both genders. I'm not saying it applies to one more than the other, but there's one parent that usually does more of the heavy lifting when it comes to medical appointments. And so some people will say, and I've seen this in correspondence all the time, is, well, you need to tell me everything that happened at the doctor's office. No, you can say, took Johnny to the doctor for this. Now, I would recommend you tell him in advance, hey, he's got a wellness check on this date. I'll keep you updated. But you can literally say, you can log into the portal and check the records. Or you can scan a copy of whatever they printed out for you at the doctor's office, scan it and attach it and send it. Because unless your ex can't read, I mean, really, like what people need to look at is making things simpler, not more complicated. And if you can just attach a document for them to reference that covers exactly what happened and there's no additional need for explanation, then just attach the document. Because
So,
anything you
okay.
do otherwise, it invites them to engage with you.
Yeah.
And if you're having a difficult, like a terrible ex, that you cannot engage. Or you engage at a very minimum, which is you just attach the document. Or, hey, go check the website. Because what mostly in Texas, the orders say you have to provide the following information on these OFW or app close, unless the parent has equal access to the information.
That's the key right there is that as long as we're giving them access to the client portals, they have access to the websites, they have access to the coaches, then you can relieve
Correct.
yourself of that responsibility. If you're withholding access to who the coach is, who the doctor is, that's a whole other
Oh, here's a side note. Don't not list them on the doctor's records or the school records. And don't say that the girlfriend or boyfriend can't pick the kids up from school on not your period of possession. You
Well,
have
that's
no control over who picks up your kids when they're not on your time.
oh, I hated that. I hated that one. That's a hard one.
Oh, it's a hard one. Oh, here's another one. You
Oh,
can't tell, because this is a big one. You can't tell your ex that it's against the law for them to cut the kids' hair. Yeah. How often have you heard that? You cannot tell them they can't cut the hair. And then when they come home with like the pink dyed hair, you can't say it's illegal for them to do it and you're going to take them to court. Sorry, they can.
Well, I'm just imagining you like getting this email from a client.
Listen, you wouldn't even. I got one because all my clients have my cell number because I believe in that if they need to get a hold of me, they can get a hold of me. If I'm in court, I'm like, I'm in court, call my paralegal. But I had one that was like, she just got a pot-bellied pig and brought it to the house. I'm like, and you're texting me on Sunday night. Why? It's not an emergency. And so I always tell my clients, I'm like, you have my number. I would ask you that you respect not normal business hours, but if it's an emergency, text me, Michelle 911, and whatever I'm doing, I'll either get someone to call you or I'll call you. But can we make sure it's an emergency?
Right. Right.
Because it's not that dad had Johnny's hair cut into a mohawk.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's illegal for you to cut their hair. I've seen that in messages. No, it's not.
Yeah. You mentioned it before, and it really is
It's
understand
not
what
fair.
really is
It's
and
not
not
fair.
fair and what really is in your control and isn't. And divorce changes all of it. And
You lose control on the time
lose
that you don't have
control
the kids.
on the time that you don't have and allowing yourselves to feel all the feels with that.
Oh, cry, go
No.
punch something, just not him or her. My business coach has a free form writing exercise that when you're like just all pent up, you write and you don't stop. And at the end of it, you burn it.
I call
I
it
gotta
fun.
tell you, it's the best. I do it. Okay. It's the best damn thing to do. Go
Yep.
do it. Don't be ashamed of doing it. You write every bad thing you want to say about that person and then burn it. You feel so much better.
Burn journal. Yep.
Oh, it's great. It's great. Like, do it.
Have a ceremony with burning it. You can do a whole thing. You can do a
You
whole
can do a whole thing. Just don't run around naked where your neighbors can see you.
thing.
Because then those pictures go to your ex, and it's like your ex-wife is losing her mind because she's running around in her underwear burning shit. Sorry.
Right? Oh my gosh.
I listen,
Okay.
I added humor not to make light of what we go through when we go through these divorces. I really it's serious, it sucks, it's miserable. I add humor because you have to survive it. And it's like with life, if you can't find humor in even some of the dark spots, then life is just that much more difficult.
And it might take you down, and your kids need you.
And your kids need you, and the next day will get better. And if that day doesn't get better, the day after that will. It does. There is light, there is hope, there is an end of the tunnel, and you will get to a point where your ex doesn't affect you anymore. And that's a beautiful place. But I also want people to remember when you're in that type of relationship and getting out, peace is priceless.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. It is wonderful to walk in your own place and not have to worry about what catastrophe you're going to walk into and what mood you're going to walk into and how much you're going to get the silent treatment or how much you screwed up that day that you don't even know about. Peace is priceless. And that war that you go through with the divorce gets you to the ultimate peace.
Yeah.
And then when you get to that peace, you protect it like it's a newborn baby.
Yeah.
You've never been so good at boundaries in your life until you find that peace.
It's so true. It's so true.
Yeah.
Be so mindful of your space. I remember just even being in our little tiny apartment for a while, me and my kids, and it was just so peaceful. I remember people making comments like, how can you go from this huge house and all this property to tiny home? I'm like, because it's peaceful.
Oh,
It's
it's
safe.
peaceful.
And
It is.
I'm in control of this space. And when my
Mhm.
kids are in this space, I have all control of how they experience this space. And that's what you can focus on.
Mhm.
My brain went way too over what they were experiencing in his space, then I lost the control over my space. And it's
You gave away your power,
absolutely.
and
Gonna
it
take it back.
sucks. But you gave away your power. Forever long, people are married to those types of people, male or female. You
Yeah.
gave away your power for the entirety of that marriage.
Yeah.
And getting your power back it's really awesome to say no. It really is.
Or to say nothing. That's honestly been my favorite. It's just not even reply because I
Well,
know that makes them even
oh, it drives. If people realized, if women really realized how much power they gain by not engaging, like it drives them nuts. And you just sit back and go, "Okay." And then you get the hello, where are you? Because then they start sending the messages you can use in court.
Yes. Yes.
You're probably out sleeping around with blah, blah, blah. I knew you were when we were married. That's what I mean. Just let them burn their own rope.
Yeah. There's so much that you don't have to respond to. And one last question. I seriously could talk to you forever. I'm in Austin too, right? We're going to have to like get together.
No, do you really?
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna have to get together.
Well, edit this out.
Edit out our addresses. Okay, now we live close, so we have no excuse now.
Oh, no, we totally have to get together. But I would love to ask you just one more question. This is something that a lot of my clients are dealing with right now, and I'm sure all of them are wishing that you could be their lawyer. Unfortunately, they have lawyers where they don't feel like they're being believed, or they don't feel like the lawyer is advocating for them against this manipulator, abuser, narcissist, whatever. And I'm just going to stop there because I'm sure you know where I'm going with this. Can you
do?
Yeah.
So you have to remember this. Your attorney that you hire, and hiring an attorney is a really personal preference. Like, you need to interview lots. I have people that come see me. I'm like, you need to go interview a few more attorneys so you can figure out what the right fit is, because the right fit is really important, especially when this person's going to help you navigate really the next chapter of your life. And so I caution clients, because your attorney that you hire does not have the emotional tie-in that you do to the relationship. So they see it, the experienced ones see it from a different level, and what they view as appropriate to fight about may not be what you want them to fight about, but they know what the lay of the land is in the courtroom.
Mhm.
And that's what you need to pay attention to, because everything a lawyer does, our litmus test is what's going to happen when we go down to the courthouse. And so we're not going to engage in every fight that you want us to, because we know what's going to help or not help at the courthouse. We know what's going to get you into trouble at the courthouse. We know what a judge is not going to like at the courthouse. And depending, like if you're in Williamson County or Hayes County or Bell County, you know the judge you're going to get. And the judge you are in front of dictates how your life goes. So the attorneys that may not be jumping through the hoops you are asking them to jump through may not be doing it for a strategical decision that you just don't like, because they don't get to go tell the other side they're an SOB. Because really, at the end of the day, you want your ex to feel like they got their just desserts. I'm going to tell you, you are never going to walk away happy from court thinking they got everything they deserve, because they're never going to. And I will tell you honestly, that's not where you want it to happen, for lots of reasons, because I am a firm believer in this. Karma's a big bitch.
I was just going to say karma.
It comes around, y'all. As my ex-husband always told me, the Italians always say that revenge is best served cold. You're not going to get that feeling. You're never going to get the feeling walking out of court that you were triumphed, like you triumphed. You're just not, because the court is inevitably going to split the baby. You go to court and both sides are going to walk away unhappy. You're both not going to get what you wanted, and you're both going to feel like you got screwed. And so the courtroom is not the place where you get your triumph. Life is where you get your triumph.
And how you choose to create your life from that point on is where you get your triumph.
Correct. Absolutely.
Do you want to stick it to the man, so to speak?
He'll get it stuck to him eventually.
You don't pay him any attention anymore.
Don't. I mean, you got to live your life and let him live his life. And just remember, there's no refunds, returns, or exchanges.
Oop, thank God. Oh, shoot. Oh my gosh. This really is an amazing conversation, and I know so helpful.
I hope so. I really do hope so.
I know it will be. These are things that are so difficult and challenging to hear. And I'm in my sessions, it's hard to have to meet them where they're at.
Yeah, it's hard. It's difficult. It really is.
It's challenging, because everyone's going to arrive at a lot of this in their own time. But that's why I do the podcast, because the more often these women hear what we're saying from different people in different places, it sticks, because that's what it did for me. The more I heard my parents saying things and other families and friends, and what limited public information there was for me, my lawyer, it finally started to stick. So I know that this is just one more voice out there to help this information stick and help women take their power back. So
when I decided to do this public speaking and trying to change what I do a little bit. I did it with the mindset of the knowledge I've accumulated over the last 23 years is really helpful to my individual clients. Really helpful when we're in the courtroom, really helpful when we're out of the courtroom. But I really feel that I could help more people than just my clients. And so that's one of the reasons why I do like podcasts like this. It's because I do think, and not that I am an expert on everything. Most of what I've learned is through the school of hard knocks and either winning in court or losing in court. But I do believe pretty solid, strong advice. And I think I can help more people in this type of platform than I just can help my individual clients one-on-one.
Yeah. Well, it's inspiring, and I think we share the same passion in that way. So
Divorce it sucks, but you'll get through it. And especially if you've got good advisors and good people on your side helping you get through, because it is not terrible to ask for help. It is not terrible to say you're not doing okay. And in fact, I think you'd be surprised when you're going through these processes, when you tell people, I'm not doing okay, I need help, the response you will get from your community. And it takes the community to get through them sometimes. Don't do it by yourself.
thank you so much. Thank you
Oh,
so
it's been my pleasure.
I know you are a very busy woman, so I really do appreciate your time. Thank you.
I have absolutely loved doing this with you. And I can't wait to do another one because I have a feeling we have another one in the stores.
Oh, hell